What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another tutorial on Force Crash Course. My name is Saman. So far we've talked about lists, we've talked about sets, we are almost there, almost ready to talk about triggers, but one last thing I wanted to just talk about really quickly are maps. I can't tell you enough how many developers are scared of the map data structure, and it's ridiculous because it's so simple, it's so easy to use, and it is so powerful. The things that you can do with a map are incredible. For one, well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll slow down. Let me show y'all what a map is first. In other words, in another word, a map is also referred to as a dictionary in other programming languages. So if you got friends that are working on a Java tech stack or C Sharp and they mention dictionary, know that that's your version of a map. They're the same thing. To help think about what a dictionary is or a map is in Apex, we can think about like a literal dictionary, like dictionary.com, if I'm allowed to say that in the video. And what's a dictionary? Well, there's keys and there's values, right? So the key is the word that you're looking up, and the value is the definition of that word. And that's literally all a dictionary is in Apex as well. And that's really why I don't understand why some people are so afraid to use it. But you guys aren't going to be afraid because you're watching this video, and hopefully I'll make this one short to make it less intimidating. So this is how you create a map. So far, it looks kind of similar to lists and sets, right? Just one small difference. In here, I not only declare one variable type, I declare two variable types. And the reason is because we want to map this string to this one. So this is our key, and this is our value. So let's say what I wanted to do, just to illustrate this a little bit. By the way, I haven't said this yet for some reason, but that's how you make a multi-line comment in Apex. So if you had multiple lines, you don't have to keep doing that. You could just use this, and everything you type in within here is now a comment. So sorry, I guess I let you guys down for not showing you that earlier. But let's say I had the name of a person. I'm giving away my name, even though I introduce it at the beginning of every video. And I wanted to say Saman's phone number is just kidding. It's 310-899-5409, right? That's my phone number. Well, there could be multiple Samans, right? Well, maybe not in Texas, but there's definitely only one person that has this phone number. So let's make the phone number the key, and every time someone looks up this phone number, they'll get mapped to me, Saman. And say there's another phone number, that one, and this maps to Mark. And just for the sake of having enough values to mess with, we have yet another phone number, and that one maps to Sarah. Every time I look for this number, I want to figure out whose number it is. And it would be kind of hard to do this with a list, because if I did this with a list, I would need to have a list of strings called phone numbers. And then I would have to have another list of strings, if I can properly, oh, no, not going well. Names, right? And then within here, I'm just doing that to save myself a couple keystrokes. Every time I added a phone number, I would then also make sure in the same order I add a name to the other list. I would have to keep doing this right? So that's how I would have persisted this information if I didn't know about maps yet. And this is a terrible way to do this. Don't ever do this, because how am I supposed to get the value of the phone number? Well, it would start to look something as terrible as this. For every string called number in my phone numbers, if the number is equal to then, okay, well, how do I access the names list? Like, how do I know where to go in the names list? I mean, I can see visually just reading this that 214345 is the second item in this list, but I don't my program doesn't know that, right? So now I need another integer to keep track of where I am in this loop. So I'd call it integer x, set that to 0, and then here do the x plus plus that we learned about. Maybe not there, but I would do the x plus plus we learned about. And then so if that matched, then I would have to like return x here, and then I would be like, oh, I have to go put this in a method. So now I know that 214 is the second item in the list. Then I'd have to go to names and get the second value of Mark from that list. If you haven't been able to tell from my tone of voice, don't do this, please. Please don't do this. If you run into the situation where you need to map two values to each other, guess what? The reason you're using the word map is because there's a data structure called maps that you're supposed to be using instead. So please use that. So how do I do this? Well, you type in the name of your map. Just for clarity, I'll name it employees map. And instead of .add, we do put. So again, there are two variables you need to enter here. One is your key, which in our case is a phone number, and the next one is your value. And you can do that for all of these. And just like that, we've created a mapping or a dictionary of phone numbers and mapped them to specific people. And let's say there was another Saman in Texas or Saman in anywhere, and they had a slightly different phone number. I would still be able to find Saman B versus Saman A here based off that phone number. Pretty cool. Now, the coolest features of maps from here are, first, the get method. With the get method, you can pass in a key and get the value of that key. So in here, I could pass in that. And if I did store that as a string, my bad. So we're able to get Sarah. Now the reason that's really cool is because all of these data structures have different complexities to them. There's this concept within complexity called runtime, and that's the amount of time it takes your algorithm to run. Now, if I were to do what I wanted to do with a loop, the complexity of that would obviously be a lot greater, right? And even if I just did a simple for loop, and let's say I did have a list of names, what this is doing is it's stepping through every single value of that list, right? So if in here I wanted to say if x is equal to Saman, in the worst case, if I had 100 elements in this list, it would take 100 iterations of this for loop to find me. That scales accordingly. So if there were 1 million records in here or 1 million strings, it would, in the worst case, take 1 million. So for the n amount of values in your list, the runtime would be O of n. what's really cool comparing that to a map is that I really did the same thing here, didn't I, with the dot get as I did with these 4 or 5 lines of code. And behind the scenes, because I've created keys and mapped those to values, Apex is able to find this value of O of 1 runtime instead of O of n. So what that means is on the first try, it finds the actual value associated to this key, versus if I were to do it this way with a list, it would take me O of n. If that doesn't make sense, honestly, don't worry about it. It's definitely not on the exam, but it is something that you should have a strong understanding of if you want to be a really good software engineer. I'll put a link out to this article by Khan Academy over at Big O Notation if you're interested. But let's get back to maps. So just like all the other wonderful classes in Apex, there is a Apex developer guide page over the map class where you can see all the different methods that belong to the map class. We just went over getting a key. There's a lot of different other ones out there like as well, like contains key, so we could pass in a key and see if it exists already. And then we can use key set to get a list of all the keys. See, I used the wrong word. I said a list, but it's really a set of all the keys in the map. And the reason it's a set is because let's see what happens if I try to create a duplicate. It got some on C, right? How come it didn't get some on B? Well, let's try to do a system debug. And you can see the syntax of the system debug's a little bit different. We still have our commas, but now we have an equal sign. And saying that 214 blah 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 is equal to mark, 310 blah 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 is equal to sum on A, the blah 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 sum on C. Oh, and looks like sum on B is just completely gone from the map altogether. So this handled it a little bit differently than the set did, because the first value it accepted, but the second one it completely got rid of. So what happened here is at first it created this line and it put that value in the map, and then it put this value in the map. But as soon as it came to put this value in the map, it recognized that this key already exists. So what it did was it basically said bye bye and only kept sum on C, the most recent value that got put into the map. So what that tells us is that this part of it is at least kind of similar to a set. So if you wanted out of this map to create a set of phone numbers, you definitely could. You could do it this way. And that'll do it for you. Or you could just knock all that out in one line, like that. And that'll get you all the phone numbers stored as a set for you. You can also put this in a for loop. So for every string phone number in the employee map.keyset, because remember, keyset is going to be all the values here on your left-hand side. So these will be all the phone numbers. And I can do system debug and print out phone number on a individual line for each one of these if I really wanted to. Just like that. So that is just a bit of a preview and high level of what a map is. Right off the bat, you can see that they're not very scary at all, and honestly, it's pretty intuitive. One thing that I did want to mention is that definitely these don't have to match in data type. So if I wanted to, we haven't learned about the ID data type yet, but you could have an ID. You could map strings to integers. Like for example, if this was the age of every employee, even though employers probably shouldn't be keeping track of that. You guys saw me misspell that and you didn't say anything. Can't believe you. Oh my. So let's see what happens here. So it starts complaining all right off the bat, right? Oh, I didn't even read the error message. I am so sorry. Don't be like me, okay? Cool. So you can see that was able to execute just fine, no problem at all. And yeah, so that is all about maps. So you can see it wasn't that bad. And maybe now you can share my frustration when you hear about other developers who aren't using maps or are too afraid to learn what they are. It was pretty easy to knock out. So at this point, we've learned the three fundamental data structures that we need to help us keep moving forward with the series. Learned about lists, we've learned about sets, and we learned about maps. And in the next series, we will be talking about triggers and what they are, how they're helpful, and how they compare to the out of the box tools like process builders and workflow rules, which is a big part of the Platform Developer 1 certification if you are studying for that.